If students are involved and interested, they will find the lesson more stimulating and fun, thus reducing inhibitions and leading to a more conducive learning environment. Some documents that I've got about the engage, study, and activate phases. So, I'm just going to read this verbatim. It says, if students need to be motivated or be exposed to the subject and topic and then have the opportunity to use it, then we need to make sure that all of these factors come into play during class. The most effective method that was put forward by language teachers is called engage, study, and activate. This approach allows all of the previously mentioned conditions to be applied and gives the teacher a great deal of flexibility in the classroom. Overall, this is probably the most effective of all the methodologies and is particularly appropriate for trainee and new teachers. As such, this is the method that this course is based around. And this is actually how I base all of my lesson plans. A part of the engage phase, this is the description for the engage phase. This is a sequence in the lesson where the teacher will try to arouse the student's interest and get them involved in the lesson. If students are involved and interested, they will find the lesson more stimulating and fun, thus reducing inhibitions and leading to a more conducive learning environment. Activities and materials which tend to engage students include games, discussions, music, pictures, stories, etc. Even if such activities are not used, it is vital that students engage with the topic and know what they are going to be dealing with before the class gets any momentum. Moving on to the study phase. Study description. These activities are those where the students will focus on the language or information. The language is Qigong, Tai Chi, martial arts. That is the language we're talking about. It's the language of the body mechanics, right? We all have our own words, our own phrases, our own terminologies that are usually fallen back upon to create understanding of the things that we are talking about. For example, like tucking the tailbone or tucking the chin in. Both actions stretch vertebrae in different directions, so you can use them, the same term, tucking, for the tailbone and the chin, and then the same description to describe both of them as well. So it really concretes what tucking means to the students. This is important because language is how information is constructed. All right, these activities in the study phase could range from the practice and study of a single movement to an entire form and the transitions between the movements in the form. Whatever the method, study means any stage where the students will be focused on the construction of the language. And if you fall short on constructing the language so that it equals the information necessary to carry out the next phase, the activity phase, then your students will not understand where they were led astray, meaning, the way I was taught, you have failed your student. This is probably one of the greatest pieces of evidence that I could ever convey as to why, when you fail to plan your lessons, you are planning to fail. Probably the most applicable spot for that saying. In addition to that, you're not even really failing yourself, you're failing for your student and your art that you're trying to convey. So really important if you care about what you're teaching and how good of a teacher others will regard you for being. Moving on. How the activate phase is described. Now remember, we went over two so far, engage and study. So the final piece, if you will, to the lesson plan would be to incorporate activate phases. And they connect with the engage and study phase in unique ways, which we'll cover at a later time. But activate stage. This is the stage where the students are encouraged to use any and all of the language that they know. Here, students should be using the movements as freely and communicatively as possible. The focus is much more on fluency than accuracy, with no restrictions or corrections being made. So this is essentially the part where you need to step back and allow the mistakes and allow the self-discovery. So typical activate phase activities include like a role-playing a certain series of movements, or this is where you see people demonstrating simple defense combinations in their karate classes and stuff like that. And it's really supposed to be as realistic as possible between two or more people. You can do simple games like push hands, sticking hands, or even sparring, depending on what it is that you're teaching. You can also have people do what is called story writing, where they are essentially starting off with something to respond to, and then creating the response as they work with their partner or group. So these ESA elements, engage, study, activate elements, need to be present in most lessons to provide a balanced range of activities for the students and create that seamless flow in the lessons. These are the kinds of lessons that 45 minutes goes by as soon as you show up. Okay, otherwise you're just left with people sitting there and talking, and they don't really know where they're going with things because they didn't have a lesson plan. They just know that they need to do 15 minutes of exercise with you and 15 minutes of this and 15 minutes of that. But there's no clear-cut algorithm explained to create the seamless transition between the engage stage into the study phase into the activation practice. Alright, and there are other ways that you can do this. For example, engage, activate, study, activate, right? But we'll get into that more later. Alright, the only real rule is that all lessons should finish with an activate stage. There you have it. Peace, peace, family. Much love for you, brothers, sisters. Keep it rocking right along, but make sure you're doing it in a good way.